Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me today, I have another amazing special guest who I'm so excited to introduce to you all. And this is our incredible coach here at Vital Spark, Whitney Moncrief. Whitney joined our team last summer, so she came to us with a really impressive resume. I mean, she had a ton of experience as a coach. She had a few years of online coaching experience, several years of in-person coaching experience. So she has helped hundreds of women through transformations, through different types of struggles. As a pre and postnatal specialist and a women's coaching specialist, she's worked with a lot of different cases. She also has a lot of experience specifically with perimenopausal clients in one of her previous coaching positions. So she's helped a lot of women through a lot of different challenges. But, I could probably talk all day about what a just powerhouse of a coach Whit is. But what I really want to get into on this episode, and what I'm so excited to share with you all, is for you to really see how she is so relatable. She's been in the shoes of so many of you, her own health journey, which we're going to talk about how she got into her health and fitness journey. But she really had some hardships in terms of losing her mom to breast cancer at a young age, and really from a young age realizing the importance of health, the importance of taking care of yourself, and for herself at a young age just being determined to kind of turn that pain into purpose and truly falling in love with the process of women's health and just really mastering our health as women. And then, of course, through her own journey of having kids and postpartum and hypothyroidism diagnosis, all things that we're going to be getting into on this episode, she's really been there firsthand through the ups and downs, through the struggles of, difficulty losing weight and all these aspects. But Whit is, again, just an incredible coach. She's an amazing mom to a now 3-year-old Emma and a little baby Brooklyn, who is absolutely adorable. And she lives with her husband, her family, dogs, all of that outside of Asheville, North Carolina. So, Whit, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited for everybody to be able to hear your story, learn from your experience, and, learn why you are such a just loved and impressive coach here at Vital Spark. So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here and chat with you.
Yeah, well, let's start from the beginning a little bit here. So I know, what you've shared with me is a lot of your journey started back in high school when you started some body image issues. Maybe let's start there. Talk to me a little bit about how that kind of experience with, some body image difficulties growing up, how did that shape your journey and kind of lead you into health and fitness?
Yeah, so in high school, I'm sure a lot of girls can resonate. The pressure is high in high school, like the looking a certain way and having a certain like body type and the clothes and all the things. And so in high school, I always struggled with body image issues as far as, I felt like I was too thin through high school and it didn't matter what I did, I was still unhappy. Like the number on the scale for me was great and what we were taught through society that you should weigh as a woman, like you're in the good range. But every time I would go shopping for clothes, I couldn't find anything to fit me. Like I felt like when I was going to school, I looked like a little boy. Everything was just too big and too baggy. So that's kind of what led me into going to the gym because I didn't want to gain weight in like the wrong areas as a high school student. Like I wanted to have curves in all the right places. So I started going to the gym and lifting. And of course, that led me into the false idea that, you know, if I wanted to build the muscle, it was nothing but protein, 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 and just killing yourself in the gym. And, it worked for me short term. And then as I got older, things changed and it stopped working. And then I started struggling with the other side of the body image issues and not being able to lose the weight in the right areas. So been on both sides of the spectrum, one extreme to the next, and finally found the in between for a short period of time before having my first child. And then that was a whole new experience in itself. When I got pregnant with Emma, like I was super excited. I was doing all the right things, and I really can't complain. My pregnancy, I was very fortunate, was so smooth sailing that I didn't really feel pregnant. The delivery went perfect, and then afterwards, like I was able to bounce back fairly quickly with like my day-to-day regimen and like feeling good and confident in my body again, but I wasn't feeling good internally. I was extremely fatigued. I had no motivation. Everything was just like a fog and a blur. And I kept chopping that up to, I'm a first time mom. I'm a first time mom. Like, this is because I'm losing sleep in the middle of the night because I'm waking up with a baby. And then when she started sleeping through the night, I was still struggling with this issue. And so this to me was that red flag of, okay, something's off. I need to keep digging deeper. And so with that, I went to my doctor. I told my doctor what was going on the first trip. And she was like, yeah, you're a first time mom. It takes your body time to recover. You've been through a lot. Your body's doing a lot. And so I settled for that first response, but
Mm.
it never got better. So I went back and I started doing digging, and I had a sneaky suspicion that it was my thyroid, but my doctor gave me a lot of pushback to do just the regular testing that most doctors will do, and that's the TSH. They don't usually test for that other stuff unless like you ask for it. Some doctors will, but for my experience, she was like, "Yeah, we'll test your TSH and just make sure since you're saying that you're having some of these symptoms." And yeah, it came back that my TSH was off, but it
Mm.
wasn't extreme, so she wasn't concerned about it. So
It
it
was
kind of got,
clinically normal, but not like what we would nowadays be like, oh, that's probably something we need to work on.
yep, exactly.
Hmm.
And she was like, "Yeah, you're okay, nothing to be too concerned about." So I took that, continued to stay frustrated and like just felt like I was missing out on a lot of like my daughter's younger years because I just couldn't keep up with her. I was so tired and like after, working and then the end of the day, like all I wanted to do was lay on the couch and go to sleep. And it got so bad to where I started to feel weak too. So then I stopped
Mm.
working out and then like everything just kind of snowballed for me. So then I continued to do my own research and doing like the digging, and I was like, okay, I need to get like the full picture because we're only getting like a piece of the puzzle and not the full thing. So I
Yeah.
went back and really had to push. I was like, listen, doc, I don't care if I have to pay this out of pocket. Like I need my T3, my T4, my TSH. I want the antibodies. I want all of the things because I do have a family history of women in my family that had hypothyroidism, which I didn't learn till later. And I know that sometimes it can be genetic and sometimes it cannot. So I was like, I want more answers because I'm not going to settle that this is just how I'm stuck feeling for the rest of my life. So I really pushed for that. And of course, that came back and she's like, yeah, things are a little off. And, I was like, no, I definitely have hypothyroidism. And this makes sense. And of course, her first solution was, yeah, we're going to put you on a low dosage because you're feeling the way that you are. We'll put you on a low dosage of levothyroxine. And because I had spent so much time doing all this research, I was like, no, I know this isn't my only option. This is just going to put a band-aid on it. I want to fix the root cause. So
Mm.
I started, going through like different lifestyle changes and making tweaks and adjustments. And I was able to get everything pretty balanced out with doing just those lifestyle changes because in the beginning, it wasn't, it wasn't severely off. It was just, a little bit. It wasn't optimal, but it wasn't like where the doctor was concerned either.
Hmm.
So, um, but then I had my second kid, and that was a whole nother a whole nother experience. That pregnancy was a struggle. Um, and they say like the second trimester, you get that burst of energy and you start feeling like yourself again. That did not happen. If the doctor would have told me, Whitney, you can be bedbound for the three trimesters, I'd have been like, yeah, I'm okay with that, doc, because I don't really feel like getting up out of the bed. But I had like a 2-year-old at the time that I was playing with and trying to keep up with while being pregnant. And I was like, gosh, this is rough. At that time, I got on the levothyroxine because I was pregnant and I couldn't get a straight answer from anybody if there was a way to support myself and the baby naturally without doing the medication. So I did start on a low dose, and as I went through my pregnancy, they increased it. And I think we got up to like 0.75 like every other day. Um, was as high as they got me up to. And then after I had the baby, they lowered me back down a little bit. But I feel like now after 2 kids, it feels even worse. And all the stuff that I did before, like the lifestyle changes, it definitely helps, but I feel like I still need to continue to dig deeper and further support, because I think, in all honesty, I think the medication in combination with like the pregnancies, my body's just all out of whack. So it just needs that like safe space again and like get rebalanced and back on track. But that's a little bit about my story with my hypothyroidism and my body image issues. And I I don't know, how to word this. Like I I struggled with, wanting to lose weight and like the general of like eat less, move more mentality for the longest time. And I think that contributed to a lot of like what I'm navigating through now. And, being frustrated and, upset with my body and not responding in the way that I was hoping and wanted it to, even though I was doing all the right things, because I had this deeper imbalance going on at the same time. So it's definitely been a learning experience and a journey for sure, but I love it because I've learned so much from it that now I get to share with all my girls.
Absolutely. And I see that in your coaching every day of, you've been there in so many of the struggles that our clients go through from, kind of reflecting on that journey that you just shared of, you've been on the end of the spectrum of feeling kind of like maybe too skinny, too, skinny fat, I think is maybe a term that you had used before when talking to me about this. And, kind of being on that end of it, being like, man, I need to add some curves here. I need to put on some muscle so I don't feel like a little boy. But then, a lot of the experience that a lot of women go through where now your body completely changes postpartum. So where you go from this person who's always kind of identified as being a little bit of like the leaner one who, you really were into health and fitness because you enjoyed putting on muscle, you enjoyed how it felt, how empowering it all is. And now here you are, this person who you probably, and I don't want to speak for you, but I know in some conversations we've had, and I know I've been in similar instances where it almost feels a little bit imposter syndrome-ish, because now here you are, this coach, this fitness professional, someone who's been doing this for years and it's a big part of who you are in your life, but yet you barely have the energy to get up off the couch. Your body's not responding anymore. You're struggling to, lose weight. You don't look or feel the same anymore. And that can absolutely affect you on a mental level in a lot of ways. I mean, kind of looking back to, both of your postpartum journeys, how was like, how were you affected on the mental side from these physical changes you were dealing with when it came to, your thyroid and your body, just your metabolism changing, your body not responding anymore?
Yeah, so definitely very much like the imposter syndrome. I'm sitting here, as a coach, and like I'm coaching women on nutrition and like how to exercise to help them prevent these issues. And then I'm sitting in the seat of I've got the issue. So it definitely was a mental thing that I needed to like work through. And then you throw like all the mom guilt in there. Here I am. I'm a health coach, and I'm not being as like hands-on and active in my child's life because of this issue that I'm having to navigate. So, then you have the guilt of like I'm a horrible mom, like I could be doing better, and I'm slacking and all of those things. And so it definitely, there was a lot of like mental things that I needed to, work through and remind myself like we're all human, and if anything, it's just going to help me to grow and relate more with women who are currently going through the same thing, and knowing that it's
Absolutely.
okay. That doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It's just your body needing some extra support and communicating that with you.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that because I think a lot of women need that reminder of like, it's not your fault and this is fixable. But sometimes, like, I think as women, a lot of us, and I know you as well, like, I think you're one of the probably the mentally toughest people I know, truthfully, Whitney. And, knowing how mentally tough you are and just knowing in general, so many women, especially when they step into motherhood, really do step into like the most mentally tough versions of themselves at the same time of simultaneously being in a state of, a lot of vulnerability with their body of, they're going through that period of pregnancy where their body isn't entirely theirs. Their body is, a vessel for a period of time, and postpartum in a lot of ways still not feeling like their body is 100% theirs, and then adding on top of it of like not feeling like their body is theirs, not feeling like they felt in the past, not maybe perceiving themselves to be the same person anymore. That's a really difficult position that I think a lot of women find themselves in. How have you, maybe helped yourself through those kind of phases? And like, are there any differences you felt between, your pregnancy with Emma, your first postpartum journey versus your kind of pregnancy and postpartum journey with Brooklyn?
Yeah, so definitely, experience like feeling foreign in my body because you see all of the social media posts of like, here's how to get your pre-baby body back. And, we all are like, yeah, I want to look like I did before I had kids. But at the same time, like, you're incredible because you just gave like life, right? Especially if you've got multiple kids, like you've given multiple life. Like it's insane what your body does. Like you created a living human being. And so I definitely had to slow down and do a lot of like reflecting and like mindset work and just journaling and just reminding myself of that and setting up more positive expectations and not going based off of like what society and social media sets for you. And so instead of like telling myself that I wanted to work to be back to like my pre-baby body, I just wanted to be the newest best version of myself and just look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm a mom of two and I still feel and look great. So don't need to look like the Whitney before I had kids because I'm not that Whitney anymore. So definitely had to do a lot of mindset stuff with that because it is. And then on top of all the other mindset work with like the imposter syndrome. So I definitely think the reflecting and the journaling were the biggest help for me mentally. And I am very strong in like my faith too. And so leaning in on that kind of helped steer me along the way too.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing all that too. I think it's going to be so powerful and so helpful for a lot of women to be able to hear your experiences and hear that you've struggled too. Because I mean, so many women I think struggle in the dark and struggle, maybe feeling alone in these feelings. So for them to see that, even someone who coaches women through these things, like you've been there yourself, and even while you were coaching women through those things, you were struggling with those things as well. Like we're all human, and as coaches, I think especially on our team specifically. I think that's part of what makes our coaches all so incredible. You, of course, absolutely included. And it's because we've been through these journeys, we've been through these struggles. We know what it feels like, a lot of the things that our clients are experiencing. I want to kind of circle back on something else that you had mentioned earlier, and that was when talking about, your doctor had given you the kind of recommendation of going on levothyroxine. And you had mentioned of like you weren't really wanting to do that because you had done a lot of your own research. You at this point were um, really getting more into holistic health, and you had kind of realized for yourself that adding a medication for your thyroid is an option, but it is ultimately a band-aid solution. It's not necessarily going to fix the problem. It's going to essentially help just manage the symptoms. I would love to talk a little bit more about that because I know something you had like personally mentioned to me as well is, going into knowing that you wanted to try for a second pregnancy and having some fears around, your ability to conceive, your ability to have a healthy pregnancy if your thyroid is not managed appropriately. And I think that's probably a really difficult place to be in, to where you mentally were like, I don't know if I want to go down the route of medication, but I also don't really know yet like what else to be doing here. I'm not really sure what's best to do here. And you were having a lot of trouble, it sounded like, finding support in that area. Can you speak to that a little bit, share a little bit about that part of your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And like full transparency, when I found out that I was pregnant with my second, I was in full blown panic mode because I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. Like, I either take the medicine or I don't take the medicine, and I run the risk of, having a miscarriage or, having complications within my pregnancy, something happening to the baby or something happening to me. And so I was very much in full blown panic mode and I was calling everybody and I couldn't get a straight answer. So I just, kind of like pressed the pause button. I took a deep breath and I just kind of weighed out, my options. And I know that just because I went on the medicine and like I did like pros and cons. So I knew that just because I went on the medicine didn't mean that I had to stay on it forever, but I know that there's been a lot of research around it and pregnancies have been successful while being on it. So to me, in that moment, that was my safest route than trying something new that I didn't know and I was unsure of. And because the OB that I was working with was experienced with that, I was like, okay, this is going to be the best and safest route for me and the baby. So I'm just going to have to suck it up and do that right now. And then I can revisit and get back to getting myself off of the medication later. So knowing that I didn't have to stay on the medication once I started it was a huge relief for me, because that was something else I was confused about. I thought, oh, well, once I start taking this, I have to take this the rest of my life. And that scared the crap out of me, because I know like your body adapts. And so I was so worried that I would start with a small dose of the levothyroxine and it would just continue to get more and more and more and more until I was taking so much that it led to another issue. And then I was having to take medication for that. And so that I think was been like my largest fear. And like working as a CNA and like seeing a lot of my patients have like a prescription full of medicine in like their nightstand, I was like, I don't want that to be me. So that's why I was so fearful of taking the medicine, because I knew like once I started one, it's going to lead to, several others down the road unless I did fix the root issue. So, really just getting to that point of, okay, what's going to work best and what's going to be the safest route for me and the baby right now. And I did choose to do the levothyroxine. And I'm getting ready to start weaning myself off of it now, because she is 8 months and we are really pushing to wean her off of breastfeeding. So we will not be staying on that medicine, because in all reality, I know that it's to treat your symptoms, but I really don't feel a difference while I'm on it either. Like it never really helped give me more energy. I think a lot of my energy came from the lifestyle changes that I was making and making sure I was prioritizing sleep and rest and recovery and stress management and all of those things. And the medicine is just making the labs look better when the doctor reads it, kind of thing. So, yeah, that's kind of like where my thought process was when I was trying to navigate that. But I was definitely in full blown panic mode.
Understandably so. Yeah, I think anybody would be in that position. I think a lot of women listening to this episode can relate to that, can relate to the stress that comes from, knowing that, maybe this isn't the option, the route that I want to go, but like maybe, I'm not educated enough in this area to be able to say otherwise. And I don't know what my options are. And I ultimately want to go with what is safest. And I do want to, follow the advice of my doctor. Of course, like we all should be at least considering the advice of our doctors.
Yeah.
And that's so important. Something I want to also add for the listeners as well, for anybody who doesn't, maybe this is all completely new. Maybe, you've never dealt with issues with your thyroid and you're kind of unfamiliar with some of the things that we're talking about here. Or maybe you have experienced issues with your thyroid. Maybe you are, someone dealing with hypothyroidism. Maybe you are on levothyroxine. I want to also give some context here of, like at Vital Spark with, our functional health kind of approach to what we do with our clients, and just the way that we all as coaches really kind of operate. We always want to help our bodies be in the best position possible to be healthy long term and to not be reliant on any type of medication, because like as you mentioned, Whit, like the problem with a lot of medications is your body adapts to it and then we have to increase dosages over time. Otherwise you start to just not have much of the benefits that you might have had earlier on when taking the medication. So the approach that we more often would suggest in these types of situations is using, medical grade, high quality, third party tested supplementation for your thyroid, as well as like other parts of the body in terms of our gut, our liver, that are heavily influencing your thyroid's ability to function well. And really looking holistically at our whole body. How is our liver functioning? How is our gut functioning? Considering that, not just we don't care just about what our level of T4 is, which is ultimately, if we're taking levothyroxine, that's just straight synthetically made T4. We also need to be able to convert that T4 into T3 so that it's really usable and functioning in the body. And most of that conversion actually happens in the liver or the gut. So you could be just giving your body, this synthetic T4, but maybe the real issue is actually more of a liver conversion issue. You're not really addressing the issue. You feel better for a little bit of time, but if the root cause issue is not addressed, we're not going to feel better long term. So a little bit of an aside there, but I wanted to also give some education here for women who are maybe a little bit like leaned in, like, wait a second, like, should I be considering other options? Or, what do I need to know about this a little bit more? Um, but I think throughout your journey, and something that we hadn't even really talked about, but something I think that I was also thinking about when I was thinking about things I want to talk about with you in this episode. And I mentioned earlier how I think you are truly one of the most mentally tough people I know. And earlier in 2024, last fall, you had experienced a really difficult time of living in an area of North Carolina that was heavily affected by Hurricane Helene. And, there was a period of time there where you were without power, you were, living with your toddler and a baby and two dogs and had no power for weeks. And, it was, from my perspective, it was always a like scary time. But every time I talked to you, you were always just so calm and so in a state of gratitude for what you did have. And I think that's something I just want to highlight here and share with our other, listeners, clients, everyone, to be able to see too that you are a shining example of we can't always control what's happening around us, but we can control how we're mentally approaching things, how we're managing our emotions, and what we're doing to support ourselves and the situation that we're in. Um, I'm curious of like if there's anything you want to share around that experience, but I'm really curious here of how has just overall your ability to kind of manage your mind, really step into places of gratitude when necessary. How does that shape your coaching, or like how do you kind of instill that into the clients that you work with?
Yeah, so I feel like, when I was going through that, I also like looked at myself like if I was speaking to one of my girls, like what would I hope for them to do? Because I don't want to ask my girls to do anything that I'm not doing. And so, as all the stuff was coming out about everything that was going on with the hurricane, I just in the moment I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to us. This is awful." But I like checked myself. I was like, wait a minute, yeah, this is bad. This isn't ideal, but there are so many people who are less fortunate than we are and they lost loved ones. So just really trying to focus on the positive. And so the analogy that I like to use with a lot of my girls with their mindset is like thinking of it like a garden, right? When you plant seeds of like positivity and happiness and the gratitude and you focus on those, you cultivate a garden. Whereas if you're constantly planting those seeds of negativity and you allow yourself to go down that road, then the garden kind of gets overrun by the thorns and the weeds and then you kind of get lost and not it's not easy to get lost, but it is sometimes hard to stay positive. And so I always like to use that analogy with my girls and kind of like what you had said, Vanessa, is um, there are going to be controllables and non-controllables in life and just really focusing on the controllables because that's all you really can control. So stressing out and trying to control the non-controllables, you're just going to drive yourself nuts. And I learned that the hard way because I'm a perfectionist and I tried so hard to control the controllables and I was like, wait a minute. What am I doing to myself? Like I need to like regroup and refocus because this is just it's not working for me. So I'm very big on telling my girls to focus on the controllables and just find the positivity. And I think you say this all the time is like we tend to create more of what we think of and what we focus on. And so I think that is just the biggest piece for me and my headspace because I could sit here and I could be negative about losing my mom and all of the things with that and how the girls aren't going to get to meet her and of course I've had those thoughts because I am human, but I also want to look at the positive. And had my mom not gone through what she's going through, I wouldn't be the strong person that I am. And so just being grateful for every situation and seeing them as opportunities to learn and grow, which is one of our main principles here with Vital Spark. So just living all those out, really, I would say is the best way to kind of sum it up.
Absolutely. I mean, truly, it's seeing obstacles as opportunities, really looking for the good in the hardship and looking for the growth opportunities and how and reflecting on the hardships we've been through and how we've grown through those periods. And definitely, you are absolutely a shining example of that. I think all of our coaches are wonderful at truly embodying our core values here at Vital Spark and helping set that example for our clients. Because truly, I hope the listeners understand here of like, even the gravity of during that time period where there was a few days where couldn't even get a hold of Whitney because no service, no internet, none of the things. And then once I got a hold of her and I was panicked, terrified, and she's just expressing to me all the things that she's grateful for. Of yes, maybe we lost our cars, maybe we lost this and that, but at least we're not in this situation. So grateful to have this, so grateful to be in these things. And it just always was like, I cannot wait to get back to coaching my girls. I cannot wait to get back to talking to my clients. And it really, that period of time always stands out in my mind as a memory that truly does set an example of what we stand for here. Of no matter what we're going through in our lives, no matter what challenges are thrown at us, everything is just an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to take from it what you will, and manage your mind through which. But Whit, I'm sure we could probably talk all day about all the lessons from your story, all the things that you've been through and overcome. But I would love to kind of wrap up by just asking you of all the things you've been through here and reflecting on your story on this recording here today. I'm curious, like, for the listeners, for the women who are listening, whether they're your clients, whether they're just listeners of the podcast, like, what do you want them to take away from your story? If you could give them maybe a piece of advice from your own struggles through your kind of different battles with your health, through your family's health, through your own thyroid issues, postpartum struggles, what do you want people to take away from this?
Yeah, so I would say I want people to take away from this and like your circumstances don't have to be what limit you from, being the best version of yourself, working towards your goals and achieving them, because you are capable of whatever you set your mind to, especially when you have support and the guidance. And, to self-advocate, dig deeper, don't settle for one answer, get other opinions, do your own research, and really self-advocate, because you're going to be your best, like, you know yourself best, like no one knows your body better than you do. And communicate that and advocate for yourself, I would say, is the biggest thing. And you know when you come across challenging situations, again, going back to what I said before, is look at them as opportunities to learn and grow instead of setbacks.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your journey. I think this was probably a really powerful episode for a lot of women to listen to. I'm sure that there probably are some people that are like, man, I have questions for you. I would love to reach out to you. If anybody wants to reach out to you and connect with you, where could they connect with you on Instagram?
Yeah, so it is underscore Coach Whit on Instagram, and then just Whitney Moncrief on Facebook.
Awesome. We'll include your Instagram handle and everything in the show notes so others can easily find you. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I would encourage you to share it with a friend, and we'll be back next week with another great episode.